What's up, everybody? I'm your host, Coach Joe Strong, here to bring you another powerful episode of the Business of Strength podcast, where you can hear the tips, tools, and interviews to turn your passion for strength into a profitable business you will love. And this podcast is with my cohorts, Dan Goodman, Zach Avanesh. We're just wrapped up the second annual or our first time doing it together, the Underground Strength Con this past weekend. It was incredible. We're recapping some of the event highlights and just talking about some of the big takeaways and people and just expressing some gratitude. I thought it was necessary to do a little conversation and chat with Dan and Zach, just recapping. There were so many great takeaways. Again, I cannot express my gratitude and thanks for all of our partners, the speakers, our friends, our family, our teams that showed up in such a big way. This was a huge lift. Took a lot of work to put a big, wedding like this together, the strength, wedding between, getting the speakers and the guests set up, running the event, having the facility, the food, the AV, you know, anybody who runs big events like this, we had over 100 people on day one. I think we had 105 or 106 people on day one and like 90 something on day two. And when you run a big event like this, obviously expectations are really high. People are spending money. They're coming from all over the country, some of them from Canada, South America. So we don't take that lightly. I want to make sure that we over delivered. And I think we did. I think we had an exceptional 2 days of learning, growing, networking, and sharing. There was tears shed, there was blood shed, there was lots of food eaten. There was a line of people out the door for some of my special tequila that I keep here in the office. And we just had an awesome time. It was so great to connect with all the. I made so many new friends. And that's really what it's all about. The industry got better last weekend. We got better as a team here at Varsity House and the Business of Strength, and I hope that you were inspired, motivated, and ready to take on the challenges. We brought in a great group of people that are real, that all told stories of struggles. There is no easy path to success. That's the path to success is doing the thing repeatedly over and over and over for years, no matter what, getting up, dusting yourself off, making a move, making it happen no matter what. This is the Business of Strength. Thanks again to everybody who came to Underground Strength Con. Our next live event is our sales summit, January 9th and 10th, back here in New York at the awesome Nyack Hotel, about 10 minutes up the street here from our headquarters. That's going to be 2 days of nonstop selling, live sales workshops, live sales roundtables, guest speakers. We're sharing the stage with some of our mastermind members who have had incredible success. One in particular, Emily Neff, who's coming out. She's got an all-girls gym, primarily works with female athletes out in the middle of nowhere, Pennsylvania, crushing it, absolutely doing amazing with her sales process and just niching down and really focusing on a niche of women and young women in this case, and being an amazing mentor to them. And her business has flourished. And then we have our special guest keynote speaker, Nikki Cass, aka Coach Al, that everybody knows. His social media brand has blown up in the last couple of years, and he's really created one of the fastest growing, most popular social media brands on the internet. We're lucky enough he's been a client here at VH for a while, and he's doing a keynote speak. He's gonna teach everybody how he's leveraged his social media for incredible sales, process and finances. So that's gonna be amazing. You can click the link; it'll be in the bio. That's January 9th and 10th, Sales Summit here in New York. This is the Business of Strength. Let's get to it. All right, gang, we're on with my cohorts, Zach Avanesh and Dan Goodman, and we are doing a little recap of the Underground Strength Con. I don't know about you guys, but my voice was shot on Sunday, and I had to go in, and I was really excited to go hang out with Hansei. Me and Hansei went hunting together in June, and it was just cool. He's a great dude, and he's like, how you feeling today? I was like, I'm smoked mentally and emotionally. I was spent. I was just so for 2 days you just like pour yourself into 1,000 conversations, and
Yes.
best part about it. So from it was really awesome. So, but I was really floored on how many people came, how excited people were, And I would say we exceeded our own expectations. At the end of it, you're always nervous putting a big show like this together. And you guys kicked ass. All the other speakers kicked ass. Thankfully, Team VH and the facility kicked ass. And I think everything just came together really nice at the end, and it was awesome.
It was amazing. I think you're right. We such a big event, 2 days. It seems like now if we do a 2 day event, it's a mastermind. It's people who are, already invested into some sort of like annual commitment. But getting people to these events has been much tougher since COVID, since people living on Zoom and just people feeling like they shouldn't leave. But the big takeaway that you're really hit home on, Joey, is emotionally, people were pouring their emotions into us saying, man, I needed this. I had to be around these people. Even what's so powerful was not just the speakers and the guests that came, but also our sponsors, which we called partners. I never saw so much engagement in
Yeah.
I hate to call them sponsors. They were our sponsors, but they are companies that we've been using since either they started or since we started. Like Sornex, I bought my first squat rack from in 2003. It was very, you know, the way to I describe it is, and we were kind of talking about this before the whole thing ended, was the industry needed it. And then that was the feedback from everybody. They're like, man, I needed this. I needed to hear what he said. I needed to get around this person and that person. And it worked out. And now we are on the hook. Like now,
Yeah, I was
I
like,
mean, we have to do the next one. We got the first one. It's like getting your first street fight. You're like, that wasn't really so bad. I could do this
yeah.
again. Danny Goods.
Yeah.
I mean, it was to champion what both of you guys said. I don't know. I mean, at the end of it, it was one of those feelings we were just sticking around, and it was like, wow, like this, it's what I needed. Like a lot of times we have experience running events, and a lot of it is about the action and the workshops and helping other people. But I think what you realize with such a diverse crowd is like you get energy from the crowd, and
Yeah.
not only just the people in attendance, but also I drew a ton of inspiration, and like not even the notes, just I'll be honest with you, I came in today to train before this podcast. We're shooting at 6 a.m. And it literally would not have happened if I didn't hear some of the presentations this past weekend where it's like, how dare I ask for more? Last night I'm bitching that I don't have time to train today. And seriously, last night I was like, how dare I ask for more? Get your lazy ass up and fucking train. And then it was, well, we have the 6WT seminar Tuesday night. It doesn't matter. Go home, get into bed, get ready to go. And it's even if it only carries the momentum through this week, well, this week's going to be more powerful than it would have been because of the event. So I drew a tremendous amount of inspiration from the speakers, and we had the speaker party the night before the seminar kicked off. And Zach, I was telling Joe yesterday, I was like, man, that was like one of the coolest parts because I've never done something like that before. So I really appreciated that, and just some of the friendships and connections. It lets you know that, look, we know like this entrepreneurial space in the gym industry, it can be a lonely place. And I've got way more brothers and sisters in arms after this past weekend. So I'm very grateful for that. And yeah, definitely we're on the hook for another one. That's for certain.
Yeah. I don't know why. I guess I've always had the mindset. I've always sought out a lot of education and stuff like that. And I don't know, for whatever reason, Dan and I have always been attracted to traveling together to learn. We've done that quite a bit most of our time together, right? So, and I understand for a lot of people, like, I mean, the one dude, Mitch. I mean, shout out to Mitch, dude. That dude's the man. Like he came here like literally with barely any money to get here. Sacrifice was awesome all weekend. And then like I'm talking to him on the way out, and he was like, I was worried. It's a lot of money for me. I got to come down with the ticket and the travel and everything like that. And
Yep.
away from my family. you know, blah, blah, blah. It's a lot of money. And, sometimes you don't know what you're going to get at these things. So it just sounded really cool. I did it. He's like, I got so much more than I had ever expected. And he's like, and I was like, when you going home? He's like, I'm leaving now. He's like, but I'm flying to Denver, and then I don't have a flight home from there because I didn't get another plane ticket because I was waiting for my rent money to come in. It's like, so as soon as my wife wires me the money, I got to get the ticket. I was like, dude, I want it. Like, you want to get better.
Planes, trains, and automobiles to get here, man. Literally.
Yeah. I think it's like, my point is that, you have to. I get it that there's a lot of people doing education and things like that, but if you find value in a few people that you follow and stuff like that, like, I've always liked the Eric Cressys of the world and so forth. So it's like, why wouldn't you, or in the West Side, so, at some point you have to buckle down and go to those places. And like, this is an opportunity to get together. You see how powerful it was. Nothing replaces this. This is awesome. I love hanging out with you guys on a Zoom call at 6 a.m. But if we were at a breakfast table right now, the vibe is different. The whole thing is different. So, you can get a lot of education doing, your audio books and your Zoom webinars and stuff like that. But once, twice, three times a year, you got to get out of your space and you got to get with a group of people. You got to shake hands, kissing babies, hanging out, talking shit, right? Which is the best part about getting together with a bunch of meatheads is talking.
Yeah, it's easy for you guys to say. I'm always the culprit of the shit talkers.
Shit talking. Yep.
I did not bust your balls at all, Dan. You did a fantastic job.
Oh man.
Listen, I got thick skin. I'm used to it.
But everything in between. It's like TJ showed up. We have a lot of our good friends, and so do you, Zach, who are colleagues in arms in a sense, and they showed up big time for this event, and they brought their friends, they brought their employees. We had a lot of our mastermind members show up. We had like, again, like I had an old like high school friend that came, which just popped up out of nowhere and was like, I've been following you since you opened your gym. I was like, dude,
that's right. Yes.
Crazy. And then, my first ever, student at Montclair State, Dave Segro, he was there. Dave's been a big fan and supporter for years. He's, come to a million things, comes to the gym, and has always been a big supporter. So it's nice to see that, you kind of give a reason for people to come together and get under one roof. And I think there's I can't remember if it's a Dan Sullivan thing, but he talks about multiplication of energy and mindset. And when you get three people together, it's not 3x, it's like 30x.
Oh yeah. I'm not sure who said that, but it's not 3x. So it's not like just three brains together. You 10x the entire thought process and elevate it so much. So all of a sudden you fill a room full of 100 people. And I mean, some of the conversations I'm hearing with people about, they're talking to Devin on the side. Devin's sharp as an attack, right? And he's telling them about, his client life cycle funnel and his 4 R's that he was talking about and stuff, right? And I see people's heads like, about to explode. And it's like, Devin doesn't do consulting. He puts out a lot of free information, but it's like, when are you going to get a guy like Devin who just opened up 7 gyms, who's killing it? You're going to get him in a room. You're going to have a captive audience where you could sit and ask him questions for a half an hour at lunch. And it's like, that doesn't happen otherwise. It was, that's also why I told people, when you go to an event, and a lot of this I learned from Alan Cosgrove, who I met at my first live event with Ryan Lee. And he said, listen, you go to an event, you're not there to get 100 ideas or even 10 ideas. You need one big idea to go back. And so I told everybody, I said, okay, you probably have a lot of notes for each speaker. And what you have to do now is take that notebook, get a idea notebook. I remember they gave this to us when I went to Joe Polish did the 25K, the Genius Network. I went to a weekend in New York City, which was the weekend mastermind. And his book said Elegant Ideas. And they were like, just write down one idea, get one idea. And you're talking about Devin. Our Devin was speaking with Joe DeSena, one of our speakers. And for me, when I brought in the speakers, we were looking strategically at how do we have some differentiation amongst each speaker. But these were people that we're all friends with, that we work with. It was almost an excuse for us to get together. And as you said, the power of them gathering the night before now, and I'm going to send out an email like this week as a follow-up, is I think a lot of them are going to end up doing some work for one another. Like they might say, hey, Quattro Deuce, can you come and speak to my team on leadership? Or, when he said, how dare you ask for more? He got that lesson from the first Underground Strength Con when the Ultimate Warrior spoke. The Ultimate Warrior said something so powerful at that event. He said, you're all looking at what these other quote unquote popular people are doing. Influencer wasn't a word at the first Underground Strength Con yet. He said, you're looking at what everybody else is doing to see and give yourself permission for what you could do. He's like, but you already have that greatness within you, and you need to have your own creativity, not look at what Joe does and I'll kind of copy what Joe does. Let me see what Dan is doing. Let me copy that. He was very much talking about being yourself. And I always say, as corny and as weak as that sounds, that's the ultimate advantage. One of the guys that came out, James Woodall, he gave me this gift. He's 20 years in business. James came to like the first or second Underground Strength Coach certification, may have been there with Vince Gabriel. Devin was probably like my second year in or so. But James, years ago, had a massive battle with cancer, and he took the drive up, and it was just amazing to see him. I haven't seen him since in person, the certification. And so here we are connected. Must have been, if he came in 2007 to a certification, we're looking at 17 years, and he's 20 years in business. And he said that certification changed my life and changed my business. And here we are talking about, all these different people. I'm such a big believer in simplicity that it's one idea that could change the projection of your life, of your business.
It was Dan. It was the 2 beers we got Z to sniff in South Carolina. He sniffed a couple bottle caps at the lake and got himself all excited. And next thing you know, we're doing Underground Strength Con 2.0.
This year I'm going to snatch and grab his computer and send out one of the Underground emails, just roasting them.
Exactly.
People would love that, like my alter ego. And also think about we've been so busy that if COVID never happened and Dan and Adam never drove down to the Underground to train and just talk business a little bit, we wouldn't be hanging out and communicating and doing work together on the regular. And so it's these one-off moments. And by the way, you mentioned Mitch, who traveled from Canada. He's more, I'm not good with my geography, on the west side.
Calgary.
Mm-hmm. After he won that money, guess what he did? He signed up for the Underground Strength Coach cert. That is the epitome of an entrepreneur, of saying, you know what? Let me invest. They don't look at it like this is my expense. Mm-hmm. I told them I gamified my early days of not having money. I said, okay, if you're going to sign up for this monthly newsletter, that's $100 a month. You must 10X it within 30 days. It puts you, you put yourself on the hook, and it puts you in like the rocket ship. And I was like, man, I miss being around these kind of people who would sleep in their car, travel from, another country or continent. That hunger has really lessened and faded with the advent of the connection. Somebody said, hey, man, networking at your event, I can network on Instagram. Bro, not on your worst day can you network on Instagram compared to your bet, or not on the worst day of the right. They think it's the same. It's not the same as in person.
It's not even close. I mean, look, I look at like every friend I have in the industry. I look around that room, anybody who we called as a speaker or partner or guest, right? Because we all invited a couple like of our personal friends and like VIP guests, right? Anybody, they are people that we know personally, have shaken hands with, have had multiple personal communications with, and very few people, they were either coming from the Zach tree, right? And people that had been through certs or been through Zach's ecosystem, or people who had been through, you know, the Joe Dan Varsity House Business of Strength ecosystem, right? And I don't know, like I always tell people, like when you come to an event and you get to sit and speak to us and we get to shake hands, it's like we're friends forever in a sense, right? And it's like now when you reach out and you say, "Hey, Joe or Dan, can you give me some hand with this? I'm having an issue with my pricing model. I just don't feel like it's working really well for me. You know, I'm trying to get my average price point up higher, right?" And it's like now I know who that is, right? As opposed to just another person who's DMing me for like
Yeah.
free consult, right? And it's
Right.
like, you know, and like I have so many people reach out to me on a weekly basis, like, "Hey, you know, can you give me this or can you give me that?" And it's like I don't even know you. Like, I'm, you know, again, if you want to book a call, like you schedule a strategy call, but otherwise, you know, I don't know you. But when I meet you at an event and I know it's like, oh, like this kid Mitch, right? It's like, yo, if Mitch calls me up, I'm like, yo, Mitch, I got you, man. Let's get on a call, right? Because I met him personally. I spoke to him. I heard his story. I heard what he's
And
trying.
you trust
Yeah,
because
of
he's got
course.
skin in the game. He's an
Yes.
action taker.
Yes. This kid, this dude spent whatever, 1,500, 2 grand of his own money with
More.
no guaranteed ride home, you
Yep.
know, to come down here
More than that.
and
The
do it.
plane ticket was
Exactly.
$1,400. You know, one thing I'll say, guys, is like, you know, let's just say I don't know the percentage of the room, but let's say it's 80% of the room, they're trying to make money in person training other humans,
Yes.
right? And you look at what social media does, and I think Joe, you said it. It makes the perceived acquisition of a new client seem very easy,
Yes.
right? But still to this day, even with all this digital media, if I was a startup gym and I was a coach, a strength coach that wanted to make a name for myself, that social media would be one of the last things that I focused on if I moved to a brand new town.
Correct.
It's human connection. It's knowing people, it's liking people, it's trusting people, it's going to meet the local deli owner, it's going to table at events, it's going to do joint ventures, it's
And it's
building real connection.
building an email list that
Yeah,
you can
yeah,
communicate
that.
long term.
And look at this event, right? Whether somebody does business like online or whatever it is, like there's instances all the time where it's like, hey, I have a client that's moving, or hey, do you have a client that can, you know, I can refer to? And here's another thing. Last night we had our 6-week transformation party, and multiple people said to me, how did it go? That's so cool. And even before we started hosting events, when we were going to a million events, our clients saw one of our core values being exercised, a commitment to excellence. And every time we came back to our clients, they were like, oh, wow, this is awesome. I'm so glad you learned this. You really committed to this process. And it professionalized our job and gave us some authority. And that's very important. The next thing is they were like, hey, listen, like you're having these huge ass events. When are you bringing back the holiday Christmas party? Because COVID's long gone. You guys have never brought it back. So listen, the in-person
Mel was pressing me
connection,
last night.
yeah.
Like, when we throwing a Christmas party?
But the in-person, nothing replaces it. Again, social media is a great tool, but it is not a marketing plan. It's a tool that should be a part of a marketing plan.
Well, let's get a couple like actual like bullet point takeaways and just give some shout outs and stuff too. So I mean, obviously, like, you know, and I'll go first. A big takeaway obviously was, you know, the impact that a small moment, a word, a sentence, a small way that thing is phrased to people can have this profound change. And I think of it, I like as parents, and Zach, you probably know a little bit better than me and Dan because our kids are still very little, but like you could be telling, you know, Summer or E something for years, and then a coach says it to them in a little bit of a different way, and they're like, Coach so and so said I got to do this, right? And they're like, I've been telling you that shit for 10 years, right? And so I think like, you know, part of the beauty about going to these events is somebody else's perspective can have a very profound aha moment on a very similar topic that you might have heard 100 times. But
Timing.
the delivery, the timing, the way it's packaged up might just be like completely mind blowing. Like I've heard Devin's 4 R's talk a few times, and I've heard the 4 R's. We have our own 4 R's, but his breakdown of the psychology of why and the detail in which he thought of the psychology of buying and some of the small phrase changes that lead people to either trust or mistrust or buy or not buy was like absolute like
Awesome.
the amazing Kreskin kind of like mind fuck bullshit. And I was like, oh my God, I never thought of it like that. And it's like, and a couple little word changes in a phrase that you use to market with or sell with can have an absolutely profound difference. So again, I've heard Devin speak a dozen times. I've hung out with Devin dozens of times, right? Personally, right? We have our own version of the 4 Rs. But that breakdown was so much more detailed and so much more introspective that it blew my mind, and I went right back to our 4 Rs and I was like, all right, I gotta detail this up a little bit, like doctor up our sales packet a little bit and get to that. So I think like, when I go to these events, like I don't know, I look at going to West Side, and I give you another analogy, right? I learned how to box squat a million times, but it wasn't the same as when I went to box squat and I had Louis Simmons and Laura Phelps and Jay Fry and all these animals standing around the monolith going, all right, here's what you're gonna do. Well, guys, like it was like I never squatted before in my life with the amount of coaching and detail and nuance that's there, so different perspective for sure.
I'll say one thing that was a reminder to me was you mentioned gathering the night before with the coaches, the speakers, and our partners / sponsors.
Shout out to Pan and Peel too for those people. They got some good damn pizza. That was good pizza.
Yep, it was like it was kind of like a brick. I don't know if they had brick oven style pizza. The people were extremely grateful that we brought in the right people that we legitimately and genuinely did work with. And so my lesson there was sometimes you're going to have opportunities or offers with money, but it might not feel genuine. It might not feel ethical. And I mentioned, it was 2009 when I met Andrea Smith before, she was, her and Quattro Deuce were not married yet, but we were at a big CrossFit affiliate gathering. And I think it was Dave Castro, he mentioned their sponsor. He's like, listen, we're not saying we like this sponsor. We're not even saying we use or encourage them. But right now we need money. And this company is the one that fronted the most. And I understand that. I mean, CrossFit was massive business, but I still love the ability. And I think this is a good marker for any coach, especially if you're doing any business online is, at the end of the day, can you look the people in the eye, the people you love the most, and tell them, hey, this is how I did my business today. I ran my business ethically. And that's something very big. Everybody who's been in business has experienced, unethical situation or circumstance. And all I kept thinking was, man, we're all going to win today. All the sponsors did not just give us money and now they're just sitting there at a table. People were buying their equipment. Jocko Fuel was the headline sponsor. I tell them, I send my son to school every day with a Jocko Molk. We drink Jocko Molk protein shakes, creatine. It was a company I've used and a guy, that I've worked with. Intex, Sorinex, Ivanko, the guys you brought in for food.
Intech was the man, dude.
He was amazing. Great, and dude. I've known Jason for, it's a little bit over 10 years now.
Great guy.
And so I think what I want to hammer home is, as a business owner, stop thinking short relationships. What can you do for me? Give me now, you owe me. Think long term. Step one, think about, Help First, which is a book. Man, I forget who freaking wrote that book, but it's just like Help First. And I heard that advice way back in the day, in the early days, is like, don't go to people and just ask. Help people out first. So engage and partner up with people that are going to help each other win. And that might not mean business relationships. It's just friendships. I hammered that home a lot. That's how I became friends with Joe DeSena and many others, was just being a friend ready to help. And people are starving for that. That's the other lesson I picked up on, is I kind of knew it, but I realized, wow, people are really getting tired of these like extremes on social media and like fast this and fast that. And, or you're my friend just because you could make me money. Don't do that. Work in partnerships. Just like Dan was saying, I'm taking notes here. Human connection and town hall meetings, core values, connect with the town. Believe it or not, I'm in a small town and I haven't done a great job of it. But um, since we started planning Underground Strength Con, I've done a ton more stuff for the people of our town. And people are always shocked. They're like, man, how come you don't have a bunch of people from your town training? Your social media is so big. Social media doesn't mean I'm impacting local people. People need to shake hands and be around you. And so the power of in person and the right joint ventures and partnerships, only work with people that you really trust. Even if you need that money short term, focus on a long term, genuine, ethical relationship.
We brought in a bunch of energy multipliers too, man. Like I thought like every speed, like you were great. And then I went and we had to, like, it was like the energy just kept doing this, right? And then obviously we had Schlegs go out there on day two and
Killed it.
everything got all bumpy, right? He was like,
I knew he would be
hilarious.
amazing
Oh man,
because
fired up.
people would, I felt, he says, he's like, listen, man, I'm a redneck who played football, who grew up in Texas, and basically Brian Dobson, the owner of Metroflex Gym, where Ronnie Coleman trains, he's like, that guy's like a second father to me. He'd take me out hog hunting at night. He's like, when it's like 94 degrees out. I knew that people would see that and be able to relate to that blue collar work ethic.
Yeah.
And then he's talking about, man, he's a vice president and a partner with equity in a gym. It's like, what do you say, 1,800 members within a year?
Yeah.
And so I wanted real people, not somebody who was going to come and dress with their fancy clothing, putting on a show. Schlake showed up in hunting boots and wearing a trucker hat. And I know, it's like, man, we need real people. And Devin is so under the radar for so many people unless you know him through Business of Strength. But how do I remember Devin? The guy that showed up at Underground Strength Coach Cert telling me he's got to learn how to run a business. I think his daughter was 3 or 4 months. He was a single dad. And I was like, this is a real G right here. This is a real guy. Quattro Deuce.
Backs up against the wall, you figure shit out quick.
You do. Quattro Deuce could be running around from the rooftop screaming that he's a Navy SEAL, but he doesn't. He earns his way into circles by talking about things that he's lived. And so I wanted that. And think about that. Last lesson, let Danny Goods go. Be real. Stop trying to pretend you are something else. Be who you are and let your genuine nature be the real attractor factor. It's okay to not be for everybody. And look how real our speakers was. Nobody got into this like fancy dress up, just a bunch of ass kickers. It was like people doing real shit. Loved it.
Big takeaways. I have some notes written down here, so I'm going to reference it. But the stuff that even before looking at notes that comes to mind is, I said it earlier in the show here today, is Quattro Deuce said it, and I know it was something that the Ultimate Warrior said, but how dare I ask for more? I look at some of the things that we've accomplished as a business, and I think one of the, maybe the only pitfall of being an entrepreneur or a strength coach or whatever is like you're always chasing more. So sometimes it's hard to appreciate what you've got. And you realize you get to a new stage or a new PR, and you start to realize that it's about the journey. It's not about the goal, and I said it in my presentation, but like, I realize and have come to realize this is what I've meant. This is what I meant to do. And I'm super appreciative of the ability to do it and, have 2 feet on the ground, be able to train, knock on wood, everybody there, like you're healthy. It's like, what else more? Like if you're getting up and you have the ability to work and do what you want to do, like you've hit the lottery. So that was very impactful. Something else, this was a statistic that I wrote down. I don't want to butcher it, Billy said, I thought Billy's presentation was really damn good.
Really good.
Yes.
And he said 80, I don't know where he got the stat, but I'm going to use it. 87% chance you'll keep doing the thing you've always done. And he called some people out. He's like, listen, some of you are here and you're sending it and you're all in. But some of you are here and you're kind of reserved. You're not sure if you're going to go all the way in and you haven't played all out.
Mhm.
And that hit me where, I think people can come to these events and be like so jacked up. And even if you are jacked up for a week afterwards, you still made progress. And like you can still think back on the day. Maybe you made a couple new connections. Like it's still very positive. But something that he said is like, okay, you're going to add all these things. But I think about it, especially with my role, is like, well, what are the things you can eliminate? And really the actionable
Quit
step,
list. He called it a quit list.
the quit list. The actionable thing that I took immediately was, okay, what are the things that I'm going to stop doing? Where am I going to stop giving my energy and attention to that like are not deserving of it, not in a negative way. And then like also, I think when you look at personal development, like what are the things I'm going to stop doing that are impacting my future? And it could be something as simple as like, if somebody's listening to this, like maybe you drink too much caffeine, like maybe you scroll late at night, maybe you don't train the way you should, maybe you eat fast food on the weekends. Who knows? It doesn't matter. But I think it's easier to say, I'm not going to do that. It's kind of like this, right? Like we've all gone out, and Zach, I mean, I know we peer pressure you at Summer Strong to drink beers, but if we go out and I'm like, oh, I'm going to have one beer, it's never a single beer. It always turns to two and sometimes three. However, if I'm going out and I'm like, I'm not drinking tonight, it's like a hard stance where like I don't even feel the pressure at all and I don't even open the valve. So the quit list was very powerful.
Yeah.
And I think it's easy to figure out like, okay, I know for sure I should stop doing that. It's hard to figure out the priorities. Like you get 2 days worth of knowledge. All right, cool. These are all good ideas, but are they good ideas for you right now? And probably not. So the quit list was very powerful for me.
Dan, I mean, simplification in a business or in your personal life
way
is
harder
than multiplication. And
way harder.
As a business, it's always easier to just add a new class, add another price point, add another part-time.
Look at this.
Exactly.
On my desk right now is our price sheet, and I'm looking at it literally before we got on the call, and it's making me itch. Going,
I told you, I was bugging about it 2 weeks ago. I was like, we just
The
read
diner menu,
and
yeah.
I wanted to light it on fire. It's just too many options, options.
100%.
And that causes confusion across the board, from the customer to the employee selling it to the back end operations of having to fulfill it. Right. So
I love simple.
So the reality is like, the smallest habits. And right before you hopped on, because you were still sleepy times with your teddy bear, but like right before
Who are you talking to?
You right before
I was training. You guys are at home in your freaking
True.
underpants that nobody
True.
stand up, boys. Stand up. Let's see what you got cooking under the shit.
I got pants on. Don't worry.
I was just gonna say, Joe Hash.
I got
feeling like a proud dad. He's like, look at Danny Goods fighting back to shit talk.
Look at this. I'm in the office. I already trained.
Amazing.
Anyway, Z and I was talking. And he was like, he's like, oh, I get up. The first thing I do is train me. The first thing I do is I get up and work a little bit. He's like, and he says, but I always feel like, I'm trying to fit my workout in. Then it's like, I'm thinking about my workout all day. And I said, I did the same thing. We always train in the afternoon. And as the business got more and more compressed, right, it was always like, I'll train at 11. I'll train at 12. I'll train at 1. I'll just train when I'm done at 3. Right. And it was like, and I would kick the can a lot. Right. Now it's just like, all right, look, if I want to make training a priority and more consistent, it's like I just get it done. It's checked off the box. I'm done working out for the day by 6:30 in the morning, 7 a.m. And it's like, all right, I'm done. I go upstairs, make everybody breakfast. So little habits like that, eliminating distraction. You talked about it in your talk, Dan. Like, the first thing a lot of people do every day and every morning is they go right to the phone, right to the emails, right to the scroll, right to the Facebook. And it's like, hey,
sucks.
You want to make an impact. Like, again, you check the bank account. I go check all the outgoing. I do my cardio and I check all the outbound marketing for that day. And it's like, what better way to start your day than to have your finger on the pulse of your business instead of, again, something like you said, somebody else's time.
It happened today. I said, like, I check our point of sale on all the businesses every morning. There was a billing issue today that we got to before the client got to it. So it's like there's something happening in billing that's every day almost.
Yes.
Like every day.
And obviously, you from my perspective, from my seat, we have marketing going out every day, whether it's email, social, or whatever. And it's like you want to keep an eye on everything because it could be like, a lot of times I'll call up and like Matt does a great job, or Ignite does a great job, but I'll call, hey, let's change a couple words on this. Hey, can you give me a better picture for that? I don't really like that creative at all, and so forth. So you always need to tweak stuff. So eliminating is hard, right? Simplifying is hard for sure. So I think that was super powerful. What do you think? Like, who is like your, I don't know. I mean, I hate to give somebody like, like better or worse, but like my breakout speaker who I thought was like just absolutely mind-blowingly good. Well, everybody was awesome, but like exceeded my expectation far more. Would have to be Billy. I thought his talk was awesome, especially because he was off the cuff with no PowerPoint slides or no.
I love that. Yeah.
And his delivery was very slick in a good way. Like he like played dumb. Z, you would get the reference. He gave me the Columbo treatment. Like he acted
He's humble.
Like,
yeah, he's very humble.
He acted like, I don't know nothing about nothing. I'm just a basketball coach.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
But he was like he was like a fucking laser, right? And he was like, he knew what's up, right? And I remember like old Columbo, he's like, so you're telling me that you left the lights on in the office around 10 p.m., but then you said you were out in the garage, right?
He was very smart. He was also our only sport coach who also has. So everybody else was and
I thought he gave the perfect talk too, because and look, I don't know if you noticed too, but he sat in the back a lot of the days.
Yes.
Absorbed a lot of information. He's a very sharp business guy,
he was coaching Saturday morning, came to the seminar all day, and then he comes up to me. He's like, yeah, I had a coach call out. I got to go coach right now. So he coached in the morning, seminar, evening.
Yeah. And then, and I thought his talk was perfect. I thought he brought a great perspective that was a little different than everybody else. Right.
Definitely.
So it was great. And then Jeremy Hartman, I mean, you talk about a guy who's passionate about.
He commanded the room,
yeah,
and people people went to lunch late watching his training.
Yeah, it was good. It was really good.
Really great. Exactly. They served lunch. There was like 5 people online. So of course, me, the fat kid, I ran out there and grabbed my lunch real quick.
Anthony Schlegel, he texted me. He's like, Zach, do you have the recordings of
I should have
of Jeremy? So I told him, yes, we're gonna get everybody their recordings. For me, everybody, there was a lot of change too. Like Andrea and Quattroduce told me, they're like, we're coaching a lot more now. They've had various times where they've got head coaches, but she's like, I'm doing this unique 6-week intro with these, she's talking about different, like Charles Polquin, like body recomp. I'm like, Andrea, I forgot you're such a training nerd. Like people know her she's very humble. Multiple time world champion, masters weightlifter, world champion, owns 2 coffee shops.
You could just tell them. I mean, she's like a little fire plug.
Yep. Very humble, talking about everybody really shared ups and downs. So it was such a reminder to me, listening to them, is that, you think, hey, I got my business here. It's always going to go here. It was a reminder to just be ready at all times for when SH shit hits the fan, SHTF, a coach leaves, Billy Armstrong with his basketball coach. He's like, I got to go back and coach. Somebody who hit home for me though, lessons wise, was Blake Bernard, such a young guy with, took himself off the coaching floor, I think at like age 30 or 31, former teacher. And I didn't realize he's got 2 gyms. I didn't realize it was 2 different spaces happening at the same time, the adults and the athletes. And then his whole servant model mindset towards taking care of his team. And he's young. I mean, I am almost 20 years older than him. And it was just like, wow, just the mindset shift was super, super impressive to me. I took so many notes
Yeah.
that I'm going to redo their notes. And even just like looking at Jeremy speak, he commanded the room. And to me, that right there was a lesson in, obviously, it's his passion, but you can't fake that stuff. And then, he does what we call live the code. Like he is he was on the world powerlifting team, multiple time national champ. You want to go down that, what is it, an inch wide, a mile deep. Stick to what you're truly great at. Don't fake something. And I think that's what we've seen in the world of influencers is people are like, hey, leadership is very popular. Let me read this leadership book, go on a few podcasts, and now I'm an expert in leadership.
It's crazy. I mean, I just look at like Jeremy came in, right? It's like now I got a guy who I met personally, connected with really well. He was one of the guys who might have snuck up to my office for some good tequila, right? And we had a great time chatting together. Post like, at the end of each day, we were hanging out. And it's like, man, if I ever have anybody who's into powerlifting or wants to lift big weights, it's like I could call this guy. Talk
Yes.
about a resource to have in your Rolodex. Like, now it's like anytime if I ever have any, if Big Mike wants to, stay competitive for another 5 years and keep doing the strongman and wants to improve his deadlift. It's like, hey Mike, let's get together with Jeremy. Let's get on a Zoom or let's go out there to see him. And it's like, let's see what we could fix, right? Because there's always something to get better at. It's like, I look at Schlegel, so you got ex-NFL guy, got a huge gym out there in Columbus, the Armory, right? Doing some cool stuff with the pads. It's like, if I, you just, the connections, I just look at you have to have, I use the term Rolodex, and a lot of young people don't even know what that shit is, but you gotta have your phone book of friends in the industry. And I think like we've done such a nice job of building up, a circle of really good people, whether it's finance, marketing, sales, people that are really good in different areas of business and or different areas of training, to be able to call and be like, hey, I got a couple athletes that are doing this. What do you guys see? What do you guys working
Well,
with?
do you know all of the speakers? That's kind of how it was. Like Matt Reynolds, who owns Turnkey Coach. Matt Reynolds did business consulting with me right after he sold his massive gym. Then he trained me when my knee and shoulder were messed up, and it was the early days of creating Turnkey Coach. And so these are the things that we all believed when we sat down and spoke. We believed and knew that it was a major missing link. And I always say we're not part of the fitness industry because I feel like the fitness industry is a lot of fake stuff going on. We built real relationships with real people. And I think what Dan said earlier, we could have shut down the podcast at that time. Like you are putting all that time and effort into your social, but look what happens when you engage with people in person, and you've got to do more of that. I mean, the power of the in-person human connection was the best. So that's my last.
And the strength competition was so much fun
Oh
too.
my God, you crushed it.
Yeah, I mean that just throws another wrench in things,
Energy went through the roof once people started
It was awesome.
lifting. People still want to train. We did nobody was able to keep to the timeline. So I did a short workout that got everybody feeling good before they ate lunch. But then the strength competition and then the open gym that you guys did, those great ideas right there.
I just note for everybody, the only guys that talked in the morning that couldn't stick to the timeline, those two guys are on this call right now, and neither one of them is me.
I went over by 5 minutes.
You went over by an hour.
No, I did not.
Yes, you did.
Yeah, I think Joe went over. But how good was that Rambo image I put on Instagram where the cop has Rambo? I said, "This is Joe Riggio trying to take my mic."
And then I don't know how you guys were dual wielding the mics. I don't know what the hell was going on.
Lots of fun. I mean, that's the whole point of it. I mean, I really had a great time. It was awesome doing it with you. And shout out to Adam too. I mean, I hate to leave Adam out. He was on. Obviously, him and his wife just had their first baby.
Yes, amazing.
He's very excited, but he put a lot of work.
He's here right now.
Yeah,
back in the mix. He beat me to the gym today.
He put a lot of work into helping us get here and so forth, and he was definitely missed. He always adds a great dynamic to our workshops and stuff like that. He's a very, very sharp dude.
Well, we're gonna crush it again, and who knows? He might have another baby in a year, so he might be out again
Right.
if he's doing the whole speed babies. So
that's it. So
that was
awesome
amazing.
job, great stuff as always. Working with you guys is always obviously Dan. 18 years of doing this. So, but Z, doing this with you was a real honor, and
love it.
I
Best
really
times with you guys. I wouldn't have won. It's not even fun to do it alone. It's always more fun with a team. So I had a great time with you guys. And I think that's another message for the people out there. Who could you partner with that you can complement and work together and, bring some more juice to your business? Think about that. So
I got to have fun with my gym bros and it's like, like you said,
great.
like texting TJ and Devin afterwards, like, I love my gym bros.
I do. I can't wait to see everybody again.
You got it. Awesome. Good job. Good stuff, boys.